In this gardening lesson, we're going to be discussing using the best soil medium in order to get your cuttings off to a great start. Specifically, we're going to be discussing fig cuttings, but these same principles apply whether or not you're pruning and creating cuttings off your citrus trees or pomegranates, grapes, roses, whatever the plant is that you're going to be accomplishing your cutting successes with. Using this practice should help get your cuttings off to a wonderful start. And I'm going to discuss some of the pitfalls when it comes to using the wrong soil mediums. So let's get started. Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cold plants. And just check out this box of prepared yellow long neck figs. As you can see, each of these cuttings that were prepared in each one of these bags, and you can see that this box was actually full as of yesterday. The shipments that have gone out today, and this is only one of about 6 boxes that were prepared. And just behind me in those black bags, as we saw together, if you have not yet seen it already, on February 1st was the initial video with the fig cutting giveaway that we do every February 1st for the last, this is now our 3rd consecutive year. And the contest rules change up, but again, I'm saving the contest rules. I'll just simply cut out that part out of the video released on February 1st and play it at the end. So stay tuned for the contest rules. But what we're going to do today is we're going to take one of these cuttings, and here specifically we're going to be using the yellow long neck fig, and we're going to basically prepare this for maximum success, so you end up with something like this within the next 4 to 8, possibly 12 weeks, is an established cutting, as this once was, with a lot of roots. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is open my fig cutting that hopefully you guys are going to start receiving as of later on today, and for sure starting tomorrow. Once you pull it out of the bag, you'll notice that there's a damp paper towel, slightly damp, and it's going to have some rooting hormone here on the bottom. And this here is where the roots are going to take. We scored one side of it, we cut it at an angle to create maximum absorption through the cutting and the rooting end. And what we did is the powder that we put there is just simply this rooting powder that you can find at most nurseries. But instead of using a rooting powder, you could also use cinnamon or honey. And the significance and the benefits of using cinnamon or honey on your cutting is that it serves as an antifungal, and that's the key ingredient also in a rooting powder, is to keep the cut end, as this is now simply, even though it's still alive, but it's also kind of dead, and you don't want it to rot. And that's kind of the lesson as we go into our soil medium of choice, is that you're not using a medium that's contributing towards rot and killing your cutting. So what the rooting powder is doing is, one, preserving the tip that has been pruned, but as the product says, it's a rooting powder, so it's got a rooting hormone in there that also stimulates the development of roots a lot faster than without the addition of a rooting powder. Because we don't want the cutting to rot, we want to use a soil medium that does not have any living organic materials in it, such as products like this. This one over here is peat moss, and you can see what that looks like inside here. I'll even pull some out here. So you can see that as this breaks down and rots, that can contribute towards rot of your cutting. And another product over here, you can see for raised bed and potting mixes, it seems fitting that if we're going to put in a pot that we can use a potting mix, but you can see that there's a lot of forest leaf litter material in here that's going to continuously break down and contribute towards rot of your cutting. So the preferred way to go is to use a mineral-based soil medium. This one over here is called vermiculite, and as you can see down here, it prevents soil compaction, promotes faster seed germination, used with potting mixes or garden soils. And let's take a look at what vermiculite even looks like. If you take a look here, you can see it kind of looks like pirate's gold. And it's basically a rock under extreme high temperatures that pretty much pops like popcorn. And it's got that fluffy popcorn feel, as does this product too, perlite, which is a little bit larger and coarse. It says over here improves drainage and aeration, and this sticker here is blocking, but you can see that it also helps for root development, which is what we're trying to do here. So take a look what this product looks like. instead of the fool's gold, this here looks like Snow White. And just as fluffy as popcorn. So for your soil medium mix, I'm recommending that you either use vermiculite exclusively or perlite exclusively, or do a combination of the two, a 50-50. And that's just what I'm gonna do here. I'm taking 1 handful of vermiculite, I'm taking 1 handful of perlite, and again, there's nothing wrong with just using one and not the other. But you can see that the vermiculite is a lot more fine. It's gonna make more contact with the stem. The perlite is a lot more coarse. They both help with retaining moisture, but they also allow all the excess to pass through. And this is gonna be our mix, but now we're gonna wanna have to mix it. I'm just gonna take another cup and mix those two ingredients like so. And here we go. So now I've got the product down to the last inch at the bottom. I've got a saucer of water over here. We're gonna set this down like so. And we're now gonna take our cutting. You can see the rooting powder and the scored end is gonna go down. The goal with the soil medium is to go over at least 1. And if you've got a second, cover a second notch. And you can kind of see those little dots, which is known as lenticles. And those are pretty much breathing holes that go from the exterior of the bark down to the underlying cambium layers. And you'll notice over time, the roots are gonna develop from those little scars, also known as lenticles, that are around the leaf nodes. But we're gonna cover 2 of those nodes like so. And we're now gonna put our soil mix on top like so. Add a little pressure to secure it in place. And you can see that I've got it in a saucer of water. And the goal with that is the water's gonna go up and offer the plant the water that it needs. To get it started, we can actually water the top. And secure it again one last time. And going forward in the future, we can go with our spray bottle like so and make sure that the cutting remains hydrated by simply spraying it like that. And you can see that the bark is now wet. And you can do this a few times a day, every morning, afternoon, and night, just to make sure that it remains hydrated. Something some people will also do is wrap it in parafilm. Another great suggestion, recommendation I've seen some gardeners do is they would put them in plastic boxes. You'll want to make sure that when starting your cuttings that you're not smothering the root zone, which is pretty much this entire container area. You can see that with this container resting in a saucer of water, the moisture is working its way up and around the root zone, but it's not being drowned in water. And that's allowing the roots to now reach and search for the water source rather than being, again, drowned in water. The aeration is hugely important, and that's the reason we're using perlite and vermiculite. And we're not using, again, peat moss or any other potting mixes, as we don't want to use any organic material that's going to rot and contribute towards the rotting of the stem, at least not until root development happens. Once you've got some roots, and this here is another example. For those of you that remember when we had the passion fruit cutting giveaway last year, September, this was one of those cuttings that I found on the property. And if you take a look here, you can see this is another vermiculite perlite mix. I can see that there's some root development right in this zone. We're gonna pull this out in just a second so you can see it. Some more roots right here in the back. And once you see roots, and ideally you should see a little bit of coiling, and here's actually another white root you can see near the bottom, but the coiling has just started. Compared to this is excessive. This should have been repotted from the original container it was in, which was similar to this, by the way. I had to pull it out and get all of those roots out. But we're now going to transfer this plant now into a larger pot, this time using a potting mix. Once the roots are established, no fear of rot. Other than make sure, again, you don't smother with water. Whenever it comes to watering your plants, you wanna make sure you soak the root zone, but then you want to make sure that it dries out between waterings, but never bone dry. That's just a general tip for pretty much all plants. Well, let's get started. So here we are with our now 1 gallon size container. You can see it's going to be taking a big step up. Later on, within the next about 30, closer to 60 days, we're going to be integrating this cutting into more passion fruit lattices that we are in the process of installing within the garden. But let's prepare this container here. So you can see I've got the potting soil built up in the gallon to about the same height, so that when I up pot this smaller container, I want to make sure that the soil level here remains at the same place here. I am not planting this plant deeper within the gallon container. You want to make sure that you're not building up the soil along the stem, as that can contribute towards stem rot. With most plants, you don't want to plant your plants too deep. You do want to make sure that that soil level remains the same. So now we're going to be pulling this out. We just tap the bottom, and now check out these roots. You can see them even better. But we're not really going to disrupt the plant too bad. We can keep the vermiculite perlite mixture on. We're just going to simply put that down here, and you can see it's already starting to fall apart, which is fine. And now we're going to be adding more potting soil around that. This plant can now stretch its roots out and begin to grow. And check out this grow tip over here. It's a little damp from the last rain that got into this potting soil bag, but you can see the new growth that's happening right here. So once you've got your cutting in the larger size container, be sure to water it. That's done. Another potting mix I want to share with you, now that we've got so much vermiculite and perlite, is I want to show you how to create an upgraded step 2 potting mix that now integrates some organic matter. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a 1/3 of these 3 ingredients, perlite, vermiculite, and peat moss, to create our own superior potting mix. So we're just going to take about 1/3 peat moss, 1/3 vermiculite, and 1/3 perlite. No measuring cup needed. Vermiculite, perlite, peat moss, mix. We're going to add some of the soil to the bottom couple of inches. And now we're going to get our up-potted fig. These roots are going in 100 different directions. Most people, just as we did here with the passion fruit cutting, won't really look at the root situation and what's happening with their cutting. If you have the opportunity, and I kind of did this for demonstration purposes, and this image is going to be part of the thumbnail image, and that was the reason I cleaned it up and got a really cool picture off of this. But if you take a look at the roots, there's an issue happening with this one right over here. There's something and a phenomenon that's going to happen in the future known as a stem girdling root, which is when the root will strangle the tree and ultimately kill it, just like a noose around someone's neck. If you take a look at this root, it's coming up off the bottom, right here. It went down, probably hit a stone within the container, went back up, and then is wrapping its way around. And you can imagine as this root gets bigger and larger, and the trunk is getting wider and thicker and larger over time, it's strangling the underlying cambium tissues, and it's going to inhibit and prevent the natural healthy development and longevity of the tree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this potential stem girdling root and cut it off. This is actually one of the issues that happens when you leave your cuttings in small containers for too long. And I'm simply gonna just prune that out right where it took a turn for the worse. So that one of the largest roots is now gone. We're gonna clean up some of this extra length too, as these were the coiled roots. And again, if I just put them in the container and wrap them, I'm creating this scenario again with roots going in a coil position instead of roots going in an outward position. So all of these excess roots can easily be pruned. And this is the best time of the year to accomplish that, being here we are now, early February. The plant is just barely starting to break dormancy, as you can see, with a little bit of greening happening right there. And now let's backfill it with some soil. You can see the roots are right there, and right here. We want to make sure that we're only going about 1/4 of an inch, and definitely less than 1/2 inch over those roots again, to prevent the other issue of a stem rot. And then be sure to water. And that concludes our lesson on cuttings. Right now, I'm going to take you to the contest rules so you can get your hands on some of these amazing flavors of fig cuttings that are here behind me. Again, there's about 10 flavors. And then within the next week or two, we're also going to be taking a tour into my garden and collecting fig cuttings from there as well to enter into what's now the 3rd annual fig cutting giveaway. So hope you enjoyed today's gardening lesson on preparing your cutting soil medium, and stay tuned now for the contest rules. Enjoy. One other quick bonus. I started on my fig cuttings about 3 or 4 days ago, so I got a little bit of a jump start on you guys. As you can see, I just want to share with you that what I'm doing here is not very different than what we just discussed. As you can see here, these are the cardboard containers, and I've got my Edgar's yellow long neck figs, and I can feel the moisture around the container. We can see down here is the water that I've got in the plastic cups. I could have just as easily put the water on the plate, and the cardboard cups would be absorbing the water that way. But the goal is just to make sure that the water is staying at the bottom and not soaking the entire root zone. And again, it's just a vermiculite perlite soil medium that's being used. These here are all Edgar's yellow long neck figs. And if you see any figs starting to pop out of it, as you might see over here, we're gonna probably cut that off as soon as possible so the energy is not wasted on making figs, as we don't want the energy going towards figs. We want leaf development and root development. That's the priority, not having figs in the first month from the time of creating your cuttings. And over here, we're doing the same thing with our pomegranates. And also, one other important consideration, make sure you put it in a window that's gonna offer your cuttings morning sunshine. And then by the afternoon, the sun can be gone, and that later hotter afternoon sun can be gone. But that morning sunlight is key. So try to find that window around your home that offers your plants that morning light. Welcome to the Ivory Organics 3rd annual free fig cutting giveaway. Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants. And I spent the last few days collecting over 10 varieties of fig cuttings from gardens ranging all the way up to Washington, down to Orange County, and where we're based here in Los Angeles. These quality fig flavors were collected from my fig gardening enthusiasts, and I'm hoping you show your support by also joining their social media sites so you can learn a little bit more about them. And if you have any questions, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer those questions for you relating to the varieties that they've donated. My first being a friend, Matt McGee in Washington. You can find him on Facebook as well as on Instagram. Jeffrey Upton, who's located in Tustin, California, which is in Orange County. And then my friend Kevin Chang, who you can also find on Facebook as well as on Instagram. And he also has a YouTube channel known as Bare Root Nations. And he's grown close to 100 variety of different tropical plants on his property, something definitely worth checking out. And last but not least, my friend Edgar Valdivia and his wife Pat invited me to their home for the second time to collect these fig cuttings, as they've got a highly popularized variety. His wife sits on the board of what's known as, and I'm sharing this link down below as well, the California Rare Fruit Growers, which you can find at crfg.org. It's over 2,000 members, and he teaches throughout the year. And every time these California Rare Fruit Growers come to his house, they're always getting their hands on, and I'm making available through Edgar today with our fig cutting giveaway, is the yellow long neck fig variety. And this is on the scale of flavors, typically the green and the yellow varieties are more of a honey flavored, whereas more of the brown and the black varieties are more of a berry flavored fig. And this is just in general, as there's hundreds if not thousands of different varieties of named figs. So with this yellow long neck fig variety that we're featuring today, this is a highly desirable, very large fig variety, probably one of the largest in the fig families, and also extremely delicious. Hence the reason we're making it available through this annual fig cutting giveaway. You can also support my friend Edgar Valdivia by following him on his YouTube channel at Edgar Valdivia's YouTube channel. And again, that link will be down below in the comments as well as the bio below. Over the next few days together, we're going to be traveling to a couple of these gardens, specifically Kevin Chang. We're going to talk about pruning. From his garden, we're collecting the Cadota green variety of fig, and also discussing how and why we prune his fig tree. And then we're also going to visit Edgar Valdivia's tropical food forest, where he's going to share with us his yellow long neck fig as well as his brown turkey figs with us. And we're going to be discussing the principles of whitewashing and how he uses whitewashing to protect his figs and maximize the health and longevity of his plants and trees. Other fig related topics we're going to discuss in the month of February include what to do with your cuttings once you receive it, how to turn those cuttings into established fig trees on your property, how to also take those cuttings to turn them into grafts. We're also going to be discussing air layering. Additionally, we're going to talk about potting, transplanting, and so much more. So if you have not already, subscribe and hit that push bell notification, so as we keep on sharing this information, you get the notification of these releases as soon as they become made available. Also, before the end of this month, we're also going to tour my fig forest as well, and all of the cuttings that we're going to get from our pruning demonstrations that we're going to do here on the property will also be made available through the annual free fig cutting giveaway. This third annual fig cutting giveaway begins on February 1st of 2020. The sooner you participate, the greater your chances are to win. And I'm going to talk about the contest rules in just a moment. It then expires and ends on February 29th, the last day of February, or while supplies last. If we end up getting rid of all these cuttings sooner, then the contest will end then. But let's go check out the cuttings before I then get to the contest rules. Come check these out. So over here, we've got all the different flavors, starting with, this is Matt McGee's Desert King, also known as the DK variety, Jeffrey Upton's Strawberry Verte, Jeffrey's Raspberry Latte Figs, Jeffrey's Panache, also known as the Tiger Figs, Jeffrey's Black Mission Figs, Kevin Chang's from Bare Root Nation's Cadota Fig, Edgar's Brown Turkey Figs, and then we've also got Edgar's, and again, this is the one we're featuring, the Yellow Long Neck Figs, hence we've got so much to offer. So I'm holding my notes now. I want to make sure I read all of these rules, and you'll find these rules also down below in the comments so that there's no confusion. To participate this year, we're simply going to go to ivorganics.com, and there you're going to be looking for a tab labeled Gardening Tips. Under Gardening Tips, you're going to find 10 gardening tips. Of those 10 gardening tips, select 1, 2, or all 10 of those gardening tips and post them onto your wall, whether it be on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And be sure to hashtag IV Organics so we can find you, or if you can also add a tag, tag us at IV Organics. If you post all 10 gardening tips on your wall, that's highly appreciated. But each day, one winner will be selected starting on February 2nd as the contest opens on February 1st. On February 2nd, one winner will be selected, and each day thereafter through the entire month of February, one winner will be selected to win 2 randomly selected varieties of figs that will then be shipped to wherever you live in the intercontinental USA, shipping included, all for free, as our thank you for following us and supporting us on the Ivy Organics. Again, this contest will only remain open while supplies last, even though you see a ton of inventory, a record amount of inventory of fig cuttings behind us. And I'm assuming we're gonna probably create maybe close to 1,000 trees, definitely in the hundreds of trees off of this annual fig cutting giveaway. The reason I'm concerned about while the supplies last is we're also gonna make it available to those of you that purchase the 6 Macros Plus discounted fertilizers in the month of February. This is the last month. The 6 Macros Plus all-purpose fertilizers are going to be discounted, and with each purchase of your 6 Macros Plus fertilizer bags, if we come over here, with every 11-ounce bag of 6 Macros Plus fertilizers that you buy, you'll be receiving 1 randomly selected variety of fig cuttings with your purchase. If you purchase a 4-pound bag of the 6 Macros Plus, then 2 randomly selected fig cuttings will be included. And the more you buy, the more cuttings you'll get. And again, the discounted all-purpose fertilizers are only running through the month of February. I also want to add that there's no limit in regards to the number of bags of fertilizer you can buy, again, at the discounted price, available only in the month of February. So to get your hands on one of these randomly selected fig cuttings, it's quite simple. For free, simply share one of your favorite gardening tips that you'll find under the gardening tips on the Ivy Organics website, and share that on your social media site, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Or you can also instantly gain a randomly selected fig cutting by simply making a purchase of the now discounted during the month of February 6 Macros Plus all-purpose fertilizers. One thing I want to quickly say before I do a quick demonstration about the 6 Macros Plus fertilizers, if you take a look here, it is one of the only fertilizers on the market that emphasize the importance of offering your plants all of the macronutrients plants need, hence the name 6 Macros. Most fertilizers, their story ends with just NPK, but plants have 6 macronutrients, nutrients plants need in abundance, and that includes your nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and also magnesium, sulfur, and calcium. The Super Blend variety has the highest NPK value and probably one of the highest NPK of any organic fertilizers on the market. So the Super Blend, and then the Premium Blend just has a lower NPK value, but also contains magnesium, sulfur, and calcium. The product, the 11-ounce bag, makes up to 20 gallons of a liquid fertilizer if you add a tablespoon to a gallon of water, whereas the 4-pound bags can make up to 120 gallons of liquid fertilizer. So before we conclude, I quickly want to demonstrate how we're going to prepare the cuttings. And we're going to specifically start with Edgar's yellow long neck figs. And we're going to pull this out, and you can see that we've got it in a plastic bag with paper towels that are in pretty much contact with every single one of these branches. We're going to pull one of these branches out, and as you can see, the wood is relatively new. This is all last year's growth. If you take a look here in front of me, there's a pile of wood with a lot of cuttings. A lot of these cuttings were taken off, as this is new growth from 2019 or from last year. And this here is from about 2 to 3 years ago. So even though the older wood could root, the younger wood typically roots more readily than the older wood. But I have personally, and I've seen many other people successfully root older cuttings, but again, success rates are significantly higher with younger wood that's between 1 and 2 years of age. So we're now gonna cut this cutting into a more shippable size, somewhere between about 4 to 8 inches in length. And you can see here, this here is the grow tip right here. And we're simply gonna go down a few nodes. And I'm going to always be cutting at a node. I'm probably gonna go a little longer with this one. And we're gonna cut it at an angle, as the roots are gonna be on this end and the shoots are gonna be on this end, being the top. With the bottom end, we're simply going to score it right through the node, like so. And that again is gonna increase absorption. We cut in an angle again to increase absorption. And most of the roots are gonna come out of that specific angle. We're now going to dip the pruned end into a rooting powder like so. And you can see the product I'm using here is just a rooting powder by Bonide, but you can simply and just as easily use a more natural solution such as honey or even cinnamon. The specific key benefits within those two products, whether it be honey and cinnamon, is that they're also antifungal. So it'll prevent the tips from rotting when you put it into a soil medium. And that's hugely beneficial towards the success of your rooting cuttings than if you were to simply have an unprotected end from rotting into that soil medium. So it kind of works as a preservative in addition to there's rooting hormones in there that'll help stimulate and encourage faster and larger developing roots with this rooting powder. What we're gonna do next is take a paper towel. We wanna make sure that the cutting remains hydrated, and we're simply going to wrap it like so. And then I've got a spray bottle with filtered water. And we're simply gonna spray it about 2 to 3 times. There's definitely moisture in here, but not enough that if you squeeze it, any drips of water are gonna come off of it. And now to maintain the moisture, we're going to bag it into a plastic wrap and seal it with a rubber band. Last but not least, and equally important, we're gonna make sure we label it. And here we're gonna be labeling it with the yellow long neck fig label, and we're going to attach that to the bag like so. So when you receive it, you know what you're getting, and you can, we're gonna end up creating cuttings, and we're gonna be demonstrating this in the upcoming weeks, or how to create more fig trees from your cutting, or we're gonna also discuss how to take your cuttings and incorporate it into your established figs by way of grafting, in addition to a whole bunch of other fig specific gardening lessons. So again, this is your reminder to be sure to join the Ivory Organics YouTube channel by subscribing right now, and also don't forget to hit that push bell notification to stay connected. As always, keep growing with Ivory Organics, and wishing you all happy gardening.